You are not invisible because you're boring. You are invisible because you were never taught what powerful people learned quietly, privately, and early. Every conversation you've lost, every room that moved on without you, every moment someone talked over you, dismissed you, or simply looked through you like you weren't there. That wasn't your personality. That was a skill gap. And the people who never experience that, the ones who walk into rooms and command attention without raising their voice, without performing, without begging, they are not more gifted than you. They simply know something you don't. Not yet. The most dangerous person in any room is never the loudest. It's the one who decides, silently, calmly, without a single wasted word, how every conversation ends. Who walks away with power. Who walks away diminished. Those who understand what you're about to learn don't fight for respect. They architect it before anyone opens their mouth, before a single word lands. Niccolò Machiavelli spent his life studying power, not as a dreamer, not as a moralist, but as a surgeon. Precise, unflinching. He understood something most people never will. Conversation is not social ritual. It is a battlefield. Invisible rules govern it. And the people who know those rules don't hope for good outcomes. They design them. He wrote, "Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are." This is about making both equally dangerous. 7 principles, 7 permanent shifts, and 1 transformation in how every person you meet, from this day forward, experiences you. Principle 1, the first mover paradox. Whoever sets the frame of a conversation first controls its entire emotional architecture. Not the smartest person in the room, not the most qualified, the first mover. Here is why. The human brain operates on a mechanism called anchoring. The first piece of information it receives disproportionately shapes every single judgment that follows. It is not a choice. It is not a flaw. It is wiring. The first emotional frame laid down in a conversation becomes the ceiling and the floor for everything said afterward. Change the anchor and you change the entire room. Most people walk into conversations reactive, waiting to see what's coming, hoping the other person is reasonable. That is not strategy. That is surrender before the first move. Think of every conversation as a chessboard. Most people sit down and wait to see what pieces the other person touches first. The first mover has already decided the opening before they sit down. Every response the other person makes is now a reaction to a design they didn't even realize was set. You've been in this scenario before. Your manager opens a meeting with the words, "We need to talk about the missed deadline." In that single sentence, before you've said a single syllable, you've been positioned. Defense, failure, explanation. You are now playing on their board, by their rules, inside their emotional frame. What changes if you arrive 1 minute earlier and open with, "Before we get into the numbers, I want to make sure we're both clear on what we're actually trying to solve here." The board just changed. You set it. They are now responding to your design. Do this. Before any high-stakes conversation, ask yourself one question. What emotional frame do I want this person operating inside? Arrive early. Speak first, not with volume, but with calm, unhurried certainty. Open with an observation, never a question. Questions signal that you need information. Observations signal that you already have it. And when someone tries to set a frame that diminishes you, redirect it cleanly, without apology, without aggression. Simply establish the ground you intend to stand on. This is not manipulation. It is conversational architecture. You are not deceiving anyone. You are simply refusing to be defined before you define yourself. But here's what no one tells you. Setting the frame means nothing, absolutely nothing, if the person across from you doesn't feel that you're in control. That requires something different. Something Machiavelli called the most underused weapon in all of human psychology. And almost no one alive uses it correctly. Principle 2, strategic silence. Silence, deployed with intent, creates psychological pressure that no word ever can. The human brain is a pattern completion machine. It is built to fill gaps. When silence follows an expected response, when you don't react the way someone anticipated, the brain experiences mild panic. It needs resolution. It needs to close the loop. And in that desperate search for closure, the person waiting for your reaction will involuntarily begin to justify themselves, to over-explain, to reveal things they had no intention of revealing. Your silence becomes their interrogation, and you never had to ask a single question. Think of a locked room. A locked room terrifies people far more than an open one. The uncertainty of what's inside, the inability to read the space, creates pressure that presence alone cannot. When you go silent, you become the locked room. The other person is standing outside, desperate to find the door, knocking louder and louder, and you haven't moved. Someone challenges you in a group setting, publicly, waiting for your emotional reaction, your defensiveness, your stumbling explanation, to confirm their dominance over you. The room watches. You say nothing, no flinch, no rushed response. You hold eye contact for 3 seconds longer than is comfortable, and you wait. Watch what happens. Watch the power leave their body and enter yours. Not through a single word, through the calculated absence of one. After someone makes a bold claim or issues a challenge, pause. 3 to 5 seconds minimum before you respond. It will feel like an eternity. It is not. It is leverage. Remove filler words from your vocabulary vocabulary entirely. Every well, every, I mean, is a white flag, a signal to the other person's unconscious that you are unsettled and seeking their approval. When someone asks you a loaded question, repeat it back to them slowly before answering. Not as a stall, as a reset. The act of repetition alone redistributes dominance. And practice silence in low-stakes conversations first. Build the muscle before the fight. Silence is not coldness. It is not cruelty. It is the refusal to perform anxiety on command. That is not manipulation. That is sovereignty. You've set the frame. You've mastered silence. But there is a third layer, one that explains why certain people don't just command moments, they command entire rooms, over years, without anyone being able to articulate exactly why. It has nothing to do with what they say. It has everything to do with what they have decided they will never say. Principle 3. The doctrine of verbal economy. The less you say, the more weight every single word carries. In behavioral economics, scarcity increases perceived value. Not occasionally, consistently, inevitably. This applies to goods. It applies to information. And it applies, with ruthless precision, to people. When someone speaks rarely but deliberately, the brain automatically categorizes their words as high signal, worth processing, worth remembering. Overtalkers are unconsciously sorted into a different category: low signal, background noise, words that wash over you without landing. Machiavelli understood this at a cellular level. Power whispers. Desperation shouts. Gold is valuable for one reason: there is not enough of it. A person who speaks with surgical precision becomes conversational gold. Each word lands like a verdict, not a plea, not a bid for approval. A verdict. The room is heated. Everyone has been talking for 20 minutes, over-explaining their positions, qualifying every statement, padding every sentence with justification. You have been listening, quietly, still. And then, when the air is thick with noise, you say one sentence. Measured, final, undeniable. The room doesn't just pause. It shifts. Not because you spoke loudest, because you spoke last and least. Adopt one rule starting today. Say 30% less than you believe you need to in any confrontational conversation. Remove all justifications from your language. You do not need to explain why you are right. State that you are right. End the sentence. The person who over-explains has already signaled doubt. Never repeat yourself to be understood. If they didn't hear you, let the silence carry the request for them to lean in. And when you end a conversation, do not linger. Do not over-explain your exit. Do not soften the close with nervous pleasantries. Stand, nod, leave. The period is more powerful than the ellipsis. Always. This principle is about respect for your own words, not contempt for others. Speaking less is not coldness. It is deliberateness. And deliberateness is what power looks like from the outside. You've controlled the opening. You've weaponized silence. You've made your words rare enough to be gold. But there is a fourth principle, and this one is different. This is the one that separates the person who is merely feared from the person who is genuinely respected. The difference is not what you think it is, and it will unsettle you in the best possible way. Principle 4. The mirror trap. Make people feel completely seen, and they will hand you influence they would never consciously surrender. Carl Jung identified the shadow, the unseen parts of a person, the unacknowledged dimensions of their inner world that almost no one ever reflects back to them. People move through their lives in a state of constant, low-level hunger to be truly understood. Not flattered, not agreed with. Understood. When you reflect someone's inner world back to them with accuracy, when you name what they are actually feeling beneath what they are saying, you trigger something neurological. The brain releases oxytocin. A bond forms, not through kindness, not through charm, through recognition. You become the only mirror in the room that tells the truth. Most people hold up flattering mirrors. They validate. They agree. They tell people what they want to hear. You hold up a precise mirror, one that reflects exactly what is actually there. That mirror becomes the most magnetic object in any room. People cannot look away from someone who sees them. Your colleague is sitting in a meeting, professionally composed, saying all the right things. But you can read the subtext, the tight jaw, the clipped sentences, the energy of someone who has been fighting an invisible battle for weeks. Everyone else takes the professional mask at face value. You lean over quietly and say, "You look like someone who's been carrying this longer than today." Watch what happens. Watch their entire architecture dissolve in 4 seconds. You haven't flattered them. You've seen them, and in a world where almost no one is truly seen, that is the most disarming thing one person can do to another. Study subtext obsessively. Ask yourself in every conversation, what is the emotion underneath the words? And then name it, not to expose the person, but to acknowledge them. That sounds less like a complaint and more like exhaustion. Ask the questions no one else thinks to ask, not about the position someone is holding, but about the feeling behind it. And understand this absolutely. Never weaponize what people reveal when they finally feel seen. The line between influence and manipulation runs exactly through that moment. Stay on the right side of it. The mirror is a gift. It only becomes a weapon when the hand that holds it is corrupt. But now you need to understand what happens when someone equally sophisticated is sitting across from you, when you're not the only one in the room who knows these principles. Machiavelli had a name for this exact scenario, and what he prescribed is one of the most ruthless strategic ideas in the entire history of power psychology. Principle 5. Reading the room beneath the room. Every conversation has a surface agenda and a real agenda. Masters only ever engage the real one. Research in social cognition has confirmed what Machiavelli knew by instinct. Humans simultaneously process two layers in every exchange. Content, what is being said, and intent, why it is being said. The vast majority of people spend their entire lives operating exclusively on the content layer. They hear words and respond to words, which is precisely why they are perpetually outmaneuvered by the small fraction of people who have learned to operate on the intent layer. Those people are playing a different game, on a different board, while everyone else is still arguing about the pieces. Think of an iceberg. The words spoken in a conversation are the visible tip, argued over, analyzed, responded to. The real agenda is the 90% below the surface. The person who has learned to read submerged ice never gets sunk. Someone praises your work in a meeting, loudly, in front of leadership. It feels good, until you hold it still long enough to see the architecture beneath it. They have just positioned themselves as your evaluator. They have claimed, without a single declarative statement, the authority to assess your competence. The compliment was the surface agenda. The hierarchy repositioning was the move. And if you only responded to the compliment, you missed the move entirely. In every conversation of consequence, ask one question: what outcome does this person need from this interaction? Not what are they saying to me? Map people's behavior across time. Single conversations are data points. Patterns across weeks and months reveal the second agenda with unmistakable clarity. When you detect a hidden agenda, do not expose it loudly. Loud exposure is emotional, and emotion signals that it affected you. Neutralize it quietly. Redirect the conversation to ground you control. And understand this: the most powerful response to a social maneuver is to act as if you never noticed it, while making a note internally that you did. File it. Use it when the time is right. Awareness of second agendas is defensive intelligence, not paranoia. Most people are not consciously conspiring. They are running social programs installed long before they had the awareness to question them. Understanding this makes you strategic, not suspicious, not hostile. Strategic. Now you can read the hidden agenda. But that is only half the equation, because the other half, the half that takes real psychological discipline, is knowing when to reveal that you see it, and when to keep playing blind. The timing of that reveal is perhaps the most dangerous idea in this entire video. Principle 6. The reveal delay. Knowing when to reveal your awareness is infinitely more powerful than the awareness itself. In game theory, this is called information asymmetry, and it is, without debate, the single greatest source of strategic leverage in any negotiation, any conflict, any social exchange that has ever existed. The moment you reveal that you know, the moment your expression shifts, your tone changes, your behavior signals that you've seen through the game, your advantage evaporates completely. The person who holds their knowledge in reserve, who continues operating as though they are unaware while in reality seeing everything, accumulates compounding strategic power. Machiavelli called this la volpe, the fox. Cunning always over force. The lion breaks down doors. The fox knows which doors were never locked. A card player who shows their hand the moment they receive it will lose to a patient player every single time. Not because they have worse cards, because they have no patience. You now hold extraordinary cards, and the only question that matters is not what you know. It's when you play it. You've discovered that a colleague has been taking credit for your work in rooms you weren't invited into. You can feel the anger. It is legitimate. The reactive move is to confront them, immediately, emotionally, publicly. And the moment you do that, they know exactly how much it affected you, they have time to construct a defense, and leadership sees emotion rather than evidence. The powerful move: say nothing. Let it continue one more cycle, this time with full documentation, quiet witnesses, and a moment of your choosing. A high visibility moment. High stakes, large audience. And then, with complete calm, you correct the record. Not with anger. Anger signals that they hurt you. Calm signals that you were always ahead of them. And that is the move that ends the game. Not tantrums. Architecture. Develop this rule and do not compromise it. Never act on new information for a minimum of 24 hours. When you detect deception, your face does not move. Practice this in a mirror until it becomes instinct. Select the moment of revelation strategically. The higher higher the stakes, the larger the audience, the more amplified the impact. And when you finally reveal, do it factually, quietly, without a single note of grievance in your voice. Because grievance is weakness. Calm is dominance. Strategic patience is not vengeance. It is not bitterness held cold. It is the discipline to act on your timeline, not the timeline of your wound. 6 principles. And you've now changed the way you enter conversations. Hold space within them, use silence, deploy your words, read the subtext, and manage what you reveal and when. But the 7th, the one Machiavelli placed at the end deliberately, is the one that makes all the others permanent. Without it, you have 6 techniques. With it, you have an identity. It begins with one question, not about what happens during the conversation, about what happens after you leave. Principle 7, Aftermath Architecture. The most powerful moment of any conversation is the one that happens after you leave the room. Nobel laureate Daniel Kahneman demonstrated what he called the peak end rule. Human beings do not evaluate experiences by calculating their average quality. They remember 2 things: the peak emotional moment and how it ended. Everything in between is compressed, distorted, or forgotten. This means the final 30 seconds of any conversation disproportionately defines how the entire interaction is remembered, how it is replayed internally, how it is described to others, how it calcifies into a permanent story about who you are. Most people exhaust all their energy on what they say in the middle. Masters engineer the ending. A film is not remembered for its second act. It lives or dies in its final frame. You are the director of every conversation you will ever have. The question isn't whether you're good at the middle. The question is, what is your final frame? You have just navigated a difficult conversation with someone above you in the hierarchy. You've held your frame from the opening. You've used silence. Your words have been precise and scarce. You've read the subtext perfectly. And now the conversation is closing. The reactive version of you would say, "Okay, sounds good, thanks."